Hi, this is Andy Collin with Growing Up Aspen. We're here with Chris Pomeroy, and today we are talking with Ed Dent. I got to know Ed in first days of Little League all the way through high school, and Ed's now a local doctor in the valley, and just the valley over in Eagle. So let's catch up with Ed and see what he's up to. Thanks. Yeah, I was just saying, I feel like it's interesting because the socializing that we did as kids with the jobs and everything else, and just being a tourist town. I mean, livelihood depended on these tourists, and so we were sort of taught to interface and be friendly and nice. It's amazing that the generations now feel less comfortable doing it because, I mean, we thrust ourselves onto it. Like I came from a place where I didn't need a job, but if I didn't have a job when I was a kid, you were like a trust fund baby or something, and you didn't want to be that. And then not only that, you don't want to ask mom and dad for money for a concert at Red Rocks. You want to go pay for it yourself.
Right. Or just to go to the arcade or whatever, the pinball palace.
The important stuff, right?
Yeah.
The pinball palace.
I'm thinking my kids would probably cringe to hear this, but there was a guy I used to work with at Pinocchio's, I believe. His name was Tom, and I can't remember his last name, but he used to sing along to the songs on the radio when we were prepping, but he would change the words. So it was like, Air Supply would come on with "I'm all out of love," and he would sing it as "I'm all out of drugs." And I still do that, and my kids hate it. God, they hate it, and it's so fun to just drive it in,
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Air Supply because there's this whole genre of music that my family likes to refer to as easy listening ed. And the Air Supply would definitely be top on there, bands
REO
like
Speedwagon,
Boss Skaggs and Poco.
Turn the low down. That's funny.
Yeah, it is interesting too. The music is totally different from when we were kids.
Yeah.
There's still singer-songwriters and stuff like that, but it's very much, I guess you could say it was trendy, but it was.
So I think that natural progression of aging is that, number one, you start making groaning sounds when you reach to pick things up. And number two, at least for me, I can't remember or even learn any of the new popular, whether it be music acts, actors, movies, whatever. Like I just can't. They're like, "Dad, check out this group, this house music," and I sort of like it, and then they're talking to me like 2 weeks later, and they're like, "Did you?" I'm like, "Oh, I kind of like this song. What is it again?" But I can still remember like every lyric from Rolling Stone's "Some Girls" album. It's like,
yeah.
I guess that's just probably natural part of it. But I'll use this little entrance as a little shameless plug for my son's music. I was talking to Andy a lot about it, and
he's awesome.
His band is kind of disbanded now because they all went to different colleges, but they were kind of throwbacks. Like they were a 90s kind of punk band, so like probably on the edge of where I can still remember stuff like Green Day and Nirvana and stuff like that. And they actually even pulled out a few other eclectic hits as part of the things they covered, like Stray Cats.
Oh, cool. And, that's awesome.
They actually even did, what the heck? See, that's what happens. Your brain stops working.
Yeah, started getting older.
They did a Johnny Cash song, Folsom Prison Blues. And,
nice.
And that one of the dads was like, would always demand that they played the Johnny Cash song. And the kids and son would be like, "Dad, I'm happy to play that as soon as you put a C note into the tip jar."
I thought the crossover was really cool when Johnny Cash did a 9 Inch Nails "Hurt." that sounded even better. It was like pretty
cool. He did some U2 stuff too. Soundgarden maybe? I can't remember.
So, one of the things too, we're talking about generations and stuff, is now the generation's going to have to deal with AI. And you and I talked a little bit about I am obviously in the image creation world, you're medical, but AI is crossing everywhere. So there's some similarities in both of it. A lot of it is more about how we approach it in your field is also probably a lot like how I approach it in mine. And can you speak a little bit to how AI, it's early stages, but I'm interested in how it's affecting the medical and how you're using it and stuff.
Yeah, that's a great question. So my colleagues and I like to joke around saying that we're training our replacements because it's pretty interesting. Right now in my world, you can take this iPhone into the exam room with you and turn on your recorder with the AI app, and it listens, and we could talk about like, hey, Andy, how's the family? And once we finally get around to why you're actually there, like, hey, your sore throat, this or that, it can filter out the small talk and focus on the medical. And even if we jump around and say, hey, your sore throat, and you're like, oh, Ed, but I have this other laundry list and my ingrown toenail and my 6 other things, but then it can come back and synthesize a readable, legible paragraph that is organized, like in the sore throat, ingrown toenail, all the things, and then it, so you can take this narrative and paste it into your chart instead of me typing or dictating in the note, and then it can come around and also like do the assessment and plan, which would be like your diagnosis and what we're going to do about it based on what we talked about. And it's pretty interesting. Like one of the things, and I think more advanced versions of it that some of my kind of colleagues, whatever you would call them, like, super users or beta users, are doing like a more advanced version of the app than I am, where it can suggest diagnoses. But I kind of encountered one time where there was a person like with, and smashed their finger and there was some blood under their fingernail, and you can, drain that. If there's a lot of pressure and pain, you can just kind of drill a little hole. It's pretty easy to do, and just to relieve the pressure. And it has a long medical term. It's called sublingual hematoma, which just means, hematoma or blood collection under your fingernail. But we had never used those words. I was just describing what this was and what you might do about it. And then when I came out of the room and looked, the AI had found the diagnosis, even though I'd never said the words. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But it is, like all computer stuff, it's only as good as what input it receives. So it kind of sometimes can kind of miss some subtleties of maybe perhaps body language or incomplete sentences, like where we communicate and we don't always say every word, but we sort of.
Well, that's why I feel like a hybrid, it's always going to be sort of a hybrid. In other words, it's good at collecting and throwing stuff, but you're still going to need someone to kind of sift through it. And it speeds up the process, so you don't need like a whole team of people, but at the same time, it pulls it together to a sense where it makes it a little easier for you to go through it real fast in a much more depth way,
I think that there's that feeling that, and I've heard some of what I've read, like I think about a radiologist doing a lot of menial procedures, which required a lot of labor to perhaps dictate or go through some things that now AI could do for her. And I would say what I was describing could do some of the menial work that none of us enjoy doing. And that I would need to be there to kind of refine it or kind of, and I just keep telling myself this lie that I'm still needed.
We've become redundant.
I think there is some truth to that there should always be a human somewhere kind of sift through some of the machine bullshit, but.
I think that's going to be part of the regulations eventually when stuff comes in, is that AI isn't going to be the beginning, the middle, and the end. There's going to need to be a stage in there that it doesn't go out until it's been through someone's eyes, because it does mix some things together, but it is pretty cool at honing in on stuff. But I in the art world, it's amazing because a lot of people feel like it's going to take away their creativity, but AI doesn't make anything until you tell it. And then how you tell it means, do you understand staging, lighting, color theory, all those things that you got to throw into it when you're asking it to do something. And you could say, okay, make a big cat, but make a big cat with a view from above, fisheye with a blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, then you'll get something more direct of what you're looking for, as opposed to, hunting for crawdads in the creek and turning the rock over and seeing what you get,
I think it points out too that we're not as unique and creative as we think we are, because AI is literally searching for patterns that look the same. So when you say, I want a cat with a funny hat on, it's going to bring back examples of cats with funny hats on and make an amalgamation of all the ones that it's found. So you really got to come up with some pretty creative ideas to stump AI, and stump the human race.
I think what you're kind of saying too, Chris, is that it's all been done, right?
Yeah. I mean, exactly. Yeah.
The song too. It's all been done before in the same three chords, and I think it's been interesting just to circle around about music and just watching my son's band create some things. And sure, there's a formula, there's recognizable patterns and what appeals to our ears, and maybe they're just building on something that's probably already been done in a sense. But
did you ever see the movie A Star Is Born?
Yeah.
So at the end of that, he says something like that. He says, it all comes down to it. It's the same 12 notes, but it's the way you do those notes that makes the beauty.
Well, but here's an interesting thing. So I just did 4 music videos for a band called Freeze Machine on MTV, and it's interesting. This guy called me up and said, "Hey, would you like to do this?" And they need some help and all that stuff. So it was kind of a low budget. So it really mattered about the music, whether I liked it or not. And I listened to it, and it was like you said, it was a new guy doing sort of early Green Day, because that's what he grew up with as a little kid listening to. But it wasn't Green Day, but if you grew up in our time, you would hear it and go, oh, it sounds a little bit like Green Day. But if you were today, you'd hear it and go, oh, this is cool, and it would sound like something new, Yeah. And I felt like it was a very interesting merge between new and old, and at the same time, you could get the old fans to recognize, but you also got the new fans to hear stuff. So it was kind of a cool way to open up the music and to be able to have an audience, you know what I mean? So it's not as if, oh, I'm so original. It's more like, oh, I'm influenced by, which is what all the folk music artists used to talk about, like Pete Seeger. Well, I got this from Woody and blah, 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 And so it was more about bouncing around. And I felt like with this generation, it's cool when they do that. And it's not about me being original. It's about me doing my stuff, but I'm influenced by these folks.
Yeah, I think that what you just said makes me, I don't know if you guys saw A Complete Unknown movie. That was fantastic. And, Bob Dylan, I think, just sort of built upon a lot of his own folk heroes like Woody Guthrie, and the movie shows you that. But yet he said things that in a way that no one else said them.
Yes.
And
there was an honesty. There was an honesty to the reality of what was going on,
Yeah.
Well, there's a rawness to it too, and it's the imitative versus innovative. And if you look at, so when I hear grunge music now, like when my kids are like, oh, listen to Alice in Chains and all this stuff, and I'm like, but the deal of it is when that came out, there was nothing else out there to compare it to.
Right.
And then everybody out there was like, hey, look at their success. Let's do something similar. So now you fast forward 10, 15, 20 years later, and you've heard the same stuff over and over and over and over again. Like I'll listen to Nirvana and I start yawning. I'm like, you know what I mean? But when it came out, it was totally different than what everybody had heard by that point.
I don't profess to know much about music, but I think Kurt Cobain, because music, a lot of rock music and popular music has like a 1-4-5 progression kind of on the scale, if you take the first note or the chord and the fourth and the fifth and the scale, those are what a lot of rock songs are based out of. But I think Kurt Cobain, I can't remember if he changed it to like a 1-3-5 or something, that his songs and this grunge sound did have like a different characteristic. Of course, he didn't invent new chords. They're still, like you said, Chris, the same 12 tones. But I think that's kind of fascinating when you can innovate in that way.
You know what was interesting? When I came to Portland in '89, Kurt Cobain was just like your son's band, and he was playing from Seattle down to Portland, and he'd just do the I-5 trip up and down, and eventually it hit. And I used to see him as a little grunge. I mean, I'd go in late at night after animating, because there was like this one nightclub that was known for punk bands, and it would just stay out. I mean, it would be open till like 2 or 3 in the morning, you know? So if you were finishing something around midnight, you could kind of unwind by going there, grab something to eat, drink, and then go home. And so It was funny because they were just this little band that all of a sudden they went on the TV and it was like, bam, they just went huge.
Yeah. We actually got to go see Big Head Todd a year and a half ago at Red Rocks. And that was similar, Andy. We used to be in Boulder, and Big Head Todd, of course, obviously never as big as Nirvana, but they got pretty big.
Yeah, they got big.
And so I joined some old college friends, and they were like, oh, Big Head Todd's playing at Red Rocks, let's go see it. And we did that. And thinking back, I can remember going to J.J. McCabe's bar on Thursday night and being literally like probably one of about 25 or 30 people, and going, look at this big dude with the Stratocaster playing Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jimi Hendrix, and just going, wow, this guy's an amazing performing presence. And so we're at the show at Red Rocks, and he's like, I just wanted to give a tribute to all those people, like we used to play at J.J. McCabe's and earn $200 a week, and we thought that was great. And I just wanted to give a tribute to all you guys that showed up on Thursday night. And I'm like in the crowd going,
He may have recognized you as a group or something. They used to play at Washington's in Fort Collins too. Same kind of story. We'd go. They'd be like, Free Fat Tire, and we're like, the Big Head Todd's playing. That'll be cool, whatever.
That was like the dark horse kind of bar, right? Washington's with all the memorabilia and stuff on the walls.
Yeah, there was one in Greeley called the Armory, and there was one.
I've been to the Armory when I was in
the Boulder one was called the Dark Horse, I think.
Was it? Yeah.
Cool.
That's pretty.
I know. Cool. I remember I went to Greeley for like a year and a half, and then I went to Boulder, and I remember catching up with you across campus as we were hitting classes and stuff every once in a while.
Yeah, Boulder was a great place. So Chris, you must have gone to CSU then. Is that right? Yeah. My son just graduated from CSU, and
cool.
He bought me a baseball cap for the Rams and said, "Dad, I'm sick of that buffalo hat you've been wearing." So
Ed, you'll appreciate this. The tailgating at CSU when we were there, it was like a guy with a pony keg in his Jeep, in the parking lot, and that was tailgating.
Yeah.
You come out here in Athens, Georgia, and the SEC football it's as big as the Super Bowl. It's like having 9 Super Bowls in a year or 7 Super Bowls in a year.
Yeah.
But tailgating out here, they have, I've been to tailgates with a Jumbotron and bouncers and all kinds of stuff. But I always laugh because out here, the Bulldogs fans bark. So you'll have this big buildup, and everybody goes, "Sick 'em, bark, bark, bark," all this stuff. And I'm like, there's no real equivalent to that in CSU because we had the Rams,
Right,
what are you gonna do? Go Rams! It doesn't have the same flair,
Well, we have the Ducks, so it's kind of hard. We're whack, whack. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. Someone said something about Oregon, like that have very nicely displayed right at the 50-yard line with their insignia how many national championships they've won.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, they've done pretty good with quarterbacks. It was Mariota.
No, they're a great team. I can't say much because my team is awful and they've been awful for 20 years.
Well, we've always had problems with the whole, the Pac-10 and then the Pac-12 and then the this and the that, and now they're offering money over here, so you go over there. And so, because I remember when I went to Boulder, I went to a couple Buffalo games, and the teams that every time I went, it was the Ducks that they were playing. I didn't know I was going to eventually become an Oregonian, but
yeah. I think that's right. There were probably some Oregon games that I guess it's sort of sad that, we all know it's all about money, conference realignments and all that. And,
I know, it's sad because in every sense it's about that. I mean, even now in our corporate business world, it's all about the money. Whereas back in our day, there was a little bit of where, people made money and it was about business, but then if they made a bunch of money, a certain amount would go to causes and would be stuff. So there was always people in Aspen always helping out and giving and doing stuff, And I feel like now there's a little less of that and a little bit more of just another house, another.
Well, I think it went beyond just philanthropy. It was literally trying to be a part of the community,
Yeah, it was. Well, it wasn't about us or them. We were all together,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like that John Denver story I talked about in my book with when Ralph Jackson passed away, and he wanted to have his ashes spread over Aspen Mountain. And they couldn't get the permits and they couldn't get the thing lined up, and everybody's sitting there, and John's like, what are we waiting for? And they're like, well, we gotta wait for the plane and blah, blah. Just, okay, where do you want it? I'll be by in just a few minutes, and he drove off, and literally 15, 20 minutes later, in comes this biplane, and that part of the community it's sad to me because it could be.
I remember like John Denver came to the elementary school, and he was working with Jacques Cousteau on the Calypso thing, and just that had a pretty big imprint on my upbringing. That he came there. I doubt he received anything for doing that, other than that he really connected with younger people.
I think it was just his going to the community and going to the local kids that his kids play with and hang out with, and just sort of doing his thing and sharing with inspiring new kids, feeling like, he wanted to share. And I felt like that was so natural and so just that time. And it's sad because I don't see that as much now. You know what I mean? I don't see people doing the free concerts. And I mean, the Eagles warmed up in Aspen High.
We see it here in Athens. This is a very music town, so there's always people over there playing. My kids got that kind of stuff too. But to have a nationally significant, world-renowned musician show up several times, I mean, it wasn't just once. It was he would come in and play, and then you had the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, John McEwen would come and play his banjo, and there was the local musicians, Dan Ford and folks like that. But yeah, we had
Bobby
a cool.
Mason, right?
What's that?
Bobby Mason.
Yep, Bobby Mason.
I think I got the first thing that got me introduced to real music. I think was the Def Camp picnic, because it was more of a hoedown of a bunch of friends who were in town just playing. And there were some mainliners sometimes, Fleetwood Mac or Stephen Stills.
Jimmy Buffett. Love him or hate him, Jimmy Buffett played, it was like John Denver played every single one of them,
Yeah. Yeah. And then, there was the kind of entertainment component where we sneak into the Wheeler Opera House when it was a decrepit old building and do bad behaviors, and then we would show up later at the midnight movie,
Yeah. I know. We definitely got a shot because I remember when we were kids going there, and it was literally the seats were broken down and falling apart.
Yeah.
And it was remodeled twice since.
You could sneak into that place like 10 different ways, you know.
Yeah.
The Jerome was the same.
Yeah.
We used to rent rooms in the Jerome to throw keggers and stuff. And by the end of the night, you'd be throwing, kegs out of the window or whatever. And,
rock star.
So we get kicked out. So what? They were like, hey, at least we're not completely vacant.
Yeah. Kicked out. I mean, remember all the days of like going around to the different swimming pools in the summer and like
pool
the Continental.
Yeah. That was some fun stuff.
It was like somehow thinking that you could like get away with like thinking that they'll just think we're staying there.
Yeah.
But we're a bunch of rat trap kids with skateboards and stuff.
Yeah. Well, skateboarding, that's the one thing I wanted to remember was, I think it was you that I went up with when we did the luging off of down Ashcroft. Man, you would get going so fast. We'd have our goggles on and it was like, you get going so fast.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
We used to do like, you probably did it too, like where you do it a catamaran. So you'd sit sideways on your skateboard with your feet on the other guy's skateboard.
Oh, yeah.
Vice versa, and you'd go down. I can remember doing that with like Blake and Garth Gilner and going so fast. And I was definitely kind of a wuss. Those guys were way more. Like,
I know, those guys were freaks.
Chris Scott's attitude of just whatever, man, just go. And so I got scared and tried to get off and like dragged my butt cheek on the asphalt. And I can remember Marsha Gilner like putting me in the bathtub and like straight butt cheek.
Well, that's another way to shed some pounds. Thanks for listening. The authors of Growing Up Aspen would like to thank you and would like to also thank the Aspen Times and the Aspen Daily News for giving us materials for our book, Growing Up Aspen, Adventures of the Unsupervised, which you can get at twistandturnpress.com and any local bookstore. Thanks.